I'm going to go through these things where just problem setup, because I think that's where people get confused on working problems like this, is how do you set them up, make sure they make sense. Okay. With this one, remember, we're always using the slant of the cone, and we have to use radius. Okay. So looking at the first thing, we have a base, and then we have what I'm calling the tube part, right? Which is the elongated version of the actual figure. So for the base of this, it's just pi r squared. You have to have radius. So setting this up, of course, would be pi times 13 squared. And this is going to be added to whatever number that is, to this, which is pi times the radius times the length of the cone. So it'd be, in this case, 3.14 times 13 times 37. This is the answer if these two things are added together. I'm not going to do the calculation. You can do that yourself, but I'm showing you how to set them up. I think people are getting messed up with setup. This one right here, you have to get the hypotenuse here. This is the hypotenuse to get the length in order to have this thing work properly. So your first step is to find out what C is. You take the square root of 12 squared plus 7 squared. And if you did this right, your C would be equal to 13.9. Then you plug it in to do the calculation. Okay. So my base, once again, you have to use radius. Okay. So the base is going to be pi times 7 squared. All right. That's the base. And you're going to add it to the tube part. The tube is pi times r. In this case would be 7, still a radius, times 13.9. A lot of people get this wrong because they're using the wrong part of these measurements. Okay. This one's easy. It's set up properly. Okay. And as you can see, here you have a radius, and then you have the L. So this is really just plugging it in. So I'm showing you all the answers to this thing to try to make this, you can go back and check your answers and make sure these are correct. There's a couple in here that are tricky. Let's clear this off, and I can move this down. All right. This one, super tricky. This one, you still have to find the hypotenuse, right? And when I'm saying the hypotenuse, keep in mind, you have to take the square root of 12 squared plus 35 squared to get the hypotenuse of that triangle. Okay. This is where people are getting things wrong. This one, you have to do two calculations. First of all, they give you the diameters. You have to cut this in half. This would be a 7 on this side, and of course, a 7 on this side. So to find that triangle, we're doing number 5 here. All right. These are not easy because you have to look at them. They're not just plugging and chugging. You have to really examine what you're doing. C would be equal to the square root of 7 squared plus 18 squared. Okay, that's just to get what would be C, the hypotenuse. This is what you have to use for this problem. Then to do the base, pi r squared, you can't use 14, you got to use 7. Radius equals 7. We already did a chapter on radius. So obviously the radius of this would be 13. So when you go, why am I getting these problems? You're using the wrong number. Go back and look at what you're doing. This is an easy one. It's cut out for you. This one, once again, you have to solve for the hypotenuse. And then you solve for the radius, which would just be 14. This one, they give you the radius, but you have to solve for this one. Obviously, you have to go C equals the square root of 12 squared plus 5 squared. I'll scroll down so you can see the answers. You can see what you got. But the idea behind it is you got to look at these things carefully in order to get the right answer, right?